The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. Be there.
What's up, everybody? We are back with our favorite live stream of the month. Of course, it's our Patron Supporter Spectacular, where we answer the questions that you've asked us. How you doing this afternoon, Gavin?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. As you guys know, this is our favorite live stream of the month. We get together the hardcores of the Vanguard community to basically talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Essentially, anything goes on these sorts of live streams. We take questions of all varieties, politics, pop culture, entertainment, anything goes, like I said. So it's always a really fun time, a great time to, hear from the community. Sometimes you guys disagree with some stuff we've said over the course of the last month or so. So it's a nice way to check in and, do a back and forth with our audience. We really like it. Yeah, exactly. An interrogation of sorts. So,
they take you down to the damp, wet, smelly portion of the police station. Stick a flashlight right in your eyes, fella. Let's talk about it. That's what we're going to do today. But it is still a Vanguard live stream. And how do we begin and end every Vanguard live stream? With a massive shout out to the patrons. This episode, no different. We couldn't do it without you guys. Comrades, Vanguardians, Super Vanguardians. You're all comrades to us. But for the people that help us keep the lights on here at the Casa del Vanguard, help us keep our boat afloat and keep us coming at you, we've got a special shout out for you. The people who produce our show. If you want to be seen on your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast, boy, this is the best way to do it. Only costs you $5 a month, and we milk every penny out of that. We've been doing a ton of studio upgrades. If you guys want to see this fabulous little thing we've got going on in the background now, not black, not bland, it's the Letter Hack. Designed it just for us. Same fella that did our wonderful logo and some other great work for us, the left's favorite cartoonist. Anyway, can't do stuff like that without the patron community. You'll also notice that you don't have to complain about our audio quite so much anymore. We've got it all figured out. We're working hard. We're in business. But yeah, good stuff.
Great stuff. Thank you so much to the support from the Patreon community. And honestly, this whole stream is dedicated to the Patreon community. We're going to be answering the questions our patrons sent in addition to some questions from the live chat. All Super Chat questions will be answered, and we might get to a couple non-Super Chat questions as well if we have time. But if you want your question answered for sure, Super Chat's the way to go. And we got a decent batch of patron questions this month. So got a lot of interesting topics to dissect and get into. Our audience always has interesting things to ask of us, so we're super excited. But yeah, got a lot of good stuff to get into, man. Do you want to take this first Super Chat before we get into any questions?
Absolutely. Shout out to you, LibraVision Network. I really appreciate the $2. I was inside Comic-Con 5 years ago. Be jealous. Yeah, Comic-Con's not really my bag, but I know a lot of people really get into it. I'm imagining you're talking about the one in San Diego, I think is where the ginormous one is. That's where all the Marvel...
I think it's going on like this weekend.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, people who are into Marvel movies, I imagine if you're like really excited for the Deadpool movie to come out, if you're really into...
It is out.
That lore. Oh, it's out now.
Yeah,
there we go.
It's also out this weekend.
Boom.
Zach further proving how out of touch he is with the comic book community. Wow.
I'm not Brat and I'm not Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Even though I was the one that put Gavin onto the Brat album, for the record. For posterity, I got to it way before he did.
That is true.
One of the few records I can say that about.
Yeah, shout out to you, LibraVision Network. I did hear about Comic-Con going on. I've never been to Comic-Con myself. It's also not really my thing. I'm, if they were doing like some epic Godzilla panel or something, I might be interested.
You would go to Kaiju Con.
Yeah, that would be lit. I think there is a Godzilla con of some
sort.
In
Tokyo there is, right?
Yeah. And I think there's one in America somewhere. I'm not sure. But either way, that's pretty cool, dude. That's pretty lit. I don't know if any interesting Comic-Con news is breaking this weekend, Marvel related or otherwise, but let us know. So shout out to you, man.
Absolutely. Shout out to you, LibraVision Network. And Gavin, do you want to plow into the first patron question of the live stream?
Yeah, let's do it. Also, huge shout out to Squisher King. Apparently, it's Squisher King's birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, hell yeah. Shout out to you, Squisher King. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, let's plow into the first patron question. Let's take a look over here. Thank you so much, Tony DeMeo. Zach, do you want to read this one off?
Sure. Movie guard question this month. Do you prefer movies that are full of political social commentary that might be irrelevant 20 years later, or movies that are not so socio-political but are evergreen because the characters or something in the middle of those two extremes? Well, I think porque no los dos, right? Like, why not have it all? That's not proper Spanish, but the expression stands. I think that you can have movies that are full of political social commentary that are also timeless, right? And I think it's about not beating somebody over the head, not making it too niche, not too explicit, but kind of transcending that and talking about ideas, taking elements of what's going on at a certain time in history that's going to transcend. I think of a movie like They Live by John Carpenter, right? That movie is very 70s coded stylistically. I don't think anybody would, or 80s coded. I think it's 80s. Yeah. There's Rowdy Roddy Piper in an 8-minute fight sequence, right? This is your God, obey. All of it's really 80s. It's kind of hokey. It's very John Carpenter, right? But the ideas that he's articulating in that movie are timeless. It's critical of capitalism. It's critical of conformity, right? It's critical of developing one mass hegemonic identity as a culture. That's all driven by finance and consumerism and all that shit. So I would say that, movies like that are great and they are timeless, but I also just as much enjoy a movie because of its cast of characters, right? I think that's one of the reasons Gavin and I have always been attracted to hangout films, kind of stoner comedies. Kevin Smith was an early inspiration for me. I think the best thing about Clerks is that he created characters that people want to hang out with, that people wish they had friends that were like that. It's kind of the fantasy reality that you have. If I got to script my life, this is how I would talk to every bullshit customer. Things like that.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Zach. I think that oftentimes the best movies that do have a lot of political or social commentary, they stay relevant. That's what makes them good. The ones that aren't as good become irrelevant because of, whatever reason. It just doesn't really stand up to the test of time. I think a pretty good example of that is the two Borat movies. The first movie is obviously chock full of social and political commentary. We often call it the definitive film of the Bush era. 100%. I think it really distilled that era in the perfect way, and it stands the test of time. You watch Borat today, still just as funny. And although obviously you're looking at an America from a decade or two ago, right, it still rings true. The sequel, on the other hand, Borat 2, similarly has a lot of social and political commentary, but it doesn't hold up in the same way. And it feels like a cringe product of the Trump era, a cringe kind of like reactionary response to the Trump era. And it just doesn't really hold up in the same way, in my opinion. I didn't really like it at the time. And, I have no interest in revisiting that.
It was way more synthetic too. There was in the hysterics and in the craziness of Borat, there was an authenticity to the point that he was making, right? It forced Americans to see themselves for what the world saw us as during the Bush administration, right? We had become a parody country. You could not, the line between parody and reality had at that time already been blurred. And I think that he was one of the first guys to really capitalize on it. And he was trying to put the lightning back in the bottle again after he'd already caught it and unleashed it with Borat. And that's just not how it works. He couldn't reconfigured. It wasn't new. It wasn't fresh. It's kind of like watching Clerks 3, to use another example, right? Or Clerks 2. Mm-hmm. If anybody remembers that, Gavin argues that it's his best movie.
All right. Zach will never let me live that down.
When we were in high school, Gavin wrote this review on was it Letterboxd or was it Tumblr?
I think it was my Tumblr blog.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so that's how long ago it was, guys. This was pre 2014. We got to
let a bad take.
Live and let die.
I said Clerks 2.
Just like his
best.
Anyway.
Yeah, it is a good question though, Tony. And generally, I do like watching movies with political and social commentary, so long as the political and social commentary isn't just totally bland. Like, I like when movies actually have something to say, even if the movie itself isn't a masterpiece. Like, one that comes to mind is Southland Tales by Richard Kelly, a film that honestly I'm not even that fond of. I think it's a total mess. I think that people who pretend it's a masterpiece are, kind of full of shit, to be honest. But it is certainly, once again, one of those movies that kind of distills the 2000s Bush era in an interesting way, in a way that very few films attempt to. So I do like, movies of that nature when they really try to say something bold about the era that they were made in or reflect, something interesting about the politics of the time. So yeah, that would be my answer. I think that for the most part, I do like it when movies try to have social commentary or political commentary. But there is a fine line, right? Sometimes it feels preachy, sometimes it feels overly heavy-handed, and that's never fun.
Yeah, 100%. So shout out to you, Tony DeMeo, and really quickly, shout out to you, Estev08. Do you agree with Kyle Kalinske when he says Biden has been to the left of Obama on economic and domestic policy? Well, I think it's worth unpacking. My first note would be Obama was in office a lot longer and he did a lot more bad things, right? I think what you could argue about Joe Biden from a domestic policy standpoint is that he accomplished almost nothing, including not accomplishing a lot of bad things. I think it's really who gives a fuck when it comes down to it. They both really governed. I think that you could argue that Biden was ineffective at governing, and Obama chose to do bad things with his ability to govern. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, although I would say there's a definite difference in a positive direction. I think that Biden's labor policy is significantly better. His NLRB is significantly better. Appointing people like Lena Khan to the FEC is way better than the direction Obama was going in, and that a lot of people fear Harris will kind of revert to just a super hyper neoliberal corporate agenda. You know what I'm saying? One thing that the Biden administration did well was appointing people like Lena Khan, who were pretty aggressive when it comes to breaking up monopolies, or at least trying to prevent huge mergers and things like that. So I do think that Kyle's right.
But Obama did give people health care. You know what I mean? Try and run against taking away the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act was dog shit, but it was still something. And
yeah, and that's
Obama
true.
was able to effectively get that done, where Joe Biden would have never been able to negotiate that. And I think that if that's why I think it's kind of it's a wash. You know what I mean? Obviously on labor, no question. Obama sucked on labor. He was a total corporatist. He sucked on mortgages. He let 1 million people lose their homes. He was.
Yeah, I don't know if we can really call Obamacare a huge win. It did get more people health care, but I just feel like it was a step in a far more neoliberal direction for the Democratic Party, as opposed to the healthcare reforms that would have been proposed under a previous Democratic administration. It was literally a freaking Mitt Romney plan.
It was, but it was something. Joe Biden didn't even put forward and accomplish any major legislation. That was an appointment that we're giving him accolades for. You know what I mean? As far as domestic policy, the NLRB isn't a domestic policy.
Well, I think his labor policy as a whole is what I was referring to. But the PRO Act, I know that didn't pass, but yeah, either way, I think there's, points on both sides.
For sure. It's really splitting hairs, I think, is the problem, right? Yeah. When it comes down to it, they were kind of trash, right? And if they hadn't governed like trash, we would have never got Donald Trump, and we would never be in the mess right now where we're worried about Donald Trump.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to you, Estev08. Really appreciate the super chat. And let's get back to another patron question. Alrighty. Here we go. Thank you so much, Mathematics, for the question and for the support on Patreon. Is it an injustice that most working class jobs are boring and tiring and dangerous and distract from the better things in life, even if the pay is raised? Think of coal mines or construction sites in the hot summer in Texas, or cleaning up puke off the floor in Zach's bar.
Never had to do that, thank God.
Yeah, Zach doesn't really have that kind of bar. That's why I'm quite eager for robots to replace all these jobs, and then for governments to invest in whole new jobs, although they might not do that second bit. Or to put it broadly, the quality of work should be a social priority. I think robots should not be designed to think or have feelings. Otherwise, there will be a very thorny philosophical issue: what rights to give the robots, or what robots suffer from. I'd rather not have conscious robots in the first place. Yeah, I don't think most of the robots are being designed to have feelings. I think what people are worried about is just that as artificial intelligence gets more advanced, and as computers get more human, that they just somehow gain sentience. I think that's what people are worried about, and that's sort of a science fiction-y concept. But yeah, obviously I do think it's accurate that most working class jobs, or not most of them, but a lot of them, are dangerous, are tiring, are hard on your body physically. Even if you're just working at Office Max or something, they could ask you to carry a really heavy box. They could put a lot of strain on your back, even though you're getting paid like minimum wage. People don't really talk about stuff like that, but it happens all the time. So yeah, 100%. And obviously it would be great if robots could replace all those jobs, all those like sort of menial, laborious, tedious jobs that don't let humans live up to their full potential. That would be great. I do think that we're still a long ways away from that. I mean, like, I just don't know how that could even work. Like, imagine a Taco Bell that's just completely run by robots. It doesn't really make sense to me. Like, there would have to be someone there to at least like program the robot or fix it if it broke. Like, I think we're still pretty far away from that. But generally, I agree.
You know what I'm talking about, everybody. As soon as the robots come, everybody's going to be prepared for the 426.9 work week. No, I kind of see where you're coming from. I don't really worry about our lifetime having to grapple with sentient robots really taking over, right? I mean, I think a lot of that's hysterics. I think a lot of that's people like Elon Musk being like, we're going to put a man on Mars in 10 years, just so you give them a bunch of fucking money to do whatever they want that you don't understand. You know, it's going to be ex machina in 5 years. I swear to God, indistinguishable from your wife. You're going to love fucking this robot. Just give me $100 million. You know what I mean? I think a lot of it is that. But as far as the menial tax and stuff, this is something that's been talked about for a while. I was just thinking about pulling up the John Maynard Keynes 15-hour work week thing that he sponsored almost 100 years ago, right? Thinking that, oh, with the Industrial Revolution and the rise in productivity, what we'll do is we'll just work less. We'll have more time to build community, write books, paint, enjoy our families, etc. That's obviously not what happened. The resources were all vacuumed up on the top. All of that extra productivity was vacuumed up to expand the divide between the rich and the poor. And I think that at the end of the day, this all comes down to capitalism, right? I'm a guy that likes working at the bar, but what's nice working at a bar is if everybody's kind of evenly distributing the fun work and the bad work, right? Think about running a store. Running a store isn't that bad of a job if you own the store, if you're in charge of yourself, if you have autonomy, you get to tell people about things that you like, right? Oh, yeah, what's in this bottle of wine? Well, this bottle of wine's from here. It tastes like this. It's this vintage. You know, the people that grow it are X, Y, and Z, and here's why I kind of like them. That's why we stock it, etc. Right? You have agency. You have the ability to project yourself, your community, your interest into what you're doing, and I think that it all, like many things, it all comes down to capitalism. The fact that we've stripped that away, right? Like Gavin and I wouldn't like doing this show as much if we just, you know, came in, read whatever notes somebody had, and then went home, right? And we didn't do any of the creative part. We didn't do any of the community building. We didn't interact with the audience. We just came here, made the same amount of money, but we sat down, we read a teleprompter, and we went home. Like that wouldn't feel as enriching to us. We wouldn't care about it in the same way. We wouldn't, you know, get the dopamine rush when we hit 35,500 subscribers. What up, dude? Boom. You know what I'm saying? Like,
100%.
That's what you have to provide people. Like, it's not the act of broadcasting that makes me happy. It's the, you know, being myself and doing it.
And honestly, under an ideal society with a UBI or something like that, people could pursue their passions. Like, say it was podcasting, say it was painting, singing, whatever. And, you know, even if you don't make it, even if you're not successful in a monetary capitalist sense, it's still important work that you're doing, right? Like, say Zach and I were just doing the same thing we're doing every day, but we had 1/10 the audience like we did back when we started off. I mean, that was still hard work that we were doing, and we were still contributing to society. We were having interesting conversations, putting them out there, you know, trying to engage in political discourse. Like, you know, that's important stuff. Just because you're not succeeding in a capitalist sense, just because it's not making you enough money to pay rent, doesn't mean you should abandon it. But so many people have to abandon their hobbies and, you know, actual passions because it's not financially viable, because it can't pay the rent. So then they have to go engage in drudgery, which drains their soul, which drains their, you know, energy and ability to then actually do the things they want to do when they get home from work. So yeah, it's a real bummer. And again, even if, you know, if you never see a cent from it, and you're a painter or an artist or something, that's still good, important, hard work you're doing. And you should not have to, you know, be rewarded financially for it to be considered valuable.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is important to talk about, I think Gavin, you would relate to this, is if you're in the grind, kind of, you mentioned, not only are you tired, it doesn't really allow you to access the part of your brain where I feel like your best creative ideas come from. I've like when I quit my startup job, right, and we started just doing the Vanguard all the time, I had like 3 months to kind of like reset, unplug. We watched a shit ton of movies, and then I just wrote the first screenplay and the only screenplay I've ever written in my entire life, right? We just worked on it over 7 days, you know, cranked out like 90 pages. I was super proud of it. It made me feel awesome, right? I never fucking did anything with that, but still in the back of my brain, I'm like proud that I got that out. I made that. I finally checked that off in my brain. Like, I know I can write a screenplay. I did that, right? You know what I mean? It made me feel good. But when I was in the grind of doing a job I hated all the time, which was taking those calls and being a dick to poor people, I was like, fuck, man, like this is the worst thing in the world. Like I'm mentally sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to get to those rich creative ideas. And that's one of the reasons why I cherish what we do so much, and that Gavin and I try and work really hard for it. It's because we know we're really fortunate. Like we know we're allowed to have access to our full cognitive minds. We're not being beat down so goddamn badly by being cashiers at Aldi or fucking Save-A-Lot or some stupid shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what we'd be doing.
Yeah. And it's not to say that I don't think there's any value whatsoever to just like having a normal job, quote unquote. Like I actually am glad that I had some of the minimum wage jobs that I had like when I was a teenager. For example, working at AMC movie theater, working at the Glenwood Arts movie theater, which was my first job ever. Like I have great memories working there. And, even though I didn't earn a lot of money, I still do think that it built character and all that kind of stuff. But I was a teenager, and I wasn't like, I wasn't making that money because I needed to pay rent. I was mostly just, just wanted the money for having fun and stuff. So it didn't matter that I was being exploited as much. I was, just kind of having fun, fucking around. And like I said, I have good memories from those jobs. It was a good time. I had fun, but people shouldn't be forced to, work for $7, $8, $9, even $10 or $11 an hour in order to make their, basic needs be met. That's crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely. But anyway, thank you so much for the super chat. And Gavin, do we want to pull up another one?
Yep. Let's get to the next.
I guess that was a patron question, but we had a good discourse about that.
And
mathematics follows up. He says, or they say, sorry, I don't know why projected masculine pronouns onto you. I'm regressive. Remember the controversy when Spotify wanted to kick out Rogan? At the same time, bigger question was also in the air as to what platforms like YouTube should be like. In your view, should YouTube be a private or government run? Who should get paid and how much? What should be rewarded by the algorithm? Will grifting and audience capture always exist no matter what? I mean, again, it's like if I could snap my fingers, yeah, I think that there should be like a PBS for the modern age where we could all kind of compete in a more transparent YouTube kind of a situation. The United States government would create some sort of parameters to that, like they did for broadcasting in the past. Do I foresee that? Absolutely the fuck not. It's going to continue to be a private, largely monopolistic enterprise that does promote, grifting and audience capture for the benefit of being able to sell more ads and keeping more eyes on the screen. Is there anything that would make you tune into mainstream media? Like, I'm not inherently anti-mainstream media. Like, I'll watch Maddie Matheson do cooking videos on regular TV and YouTube. I watch Fox Sports every once in a while, find out about the Tua Tagovailoa. He got a better deal than Jared Goff, which is fucking crazy. The Dolphins are stupid.
Independent sports media. Zach.
I only tune into the ESV or EVSN. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I do remember that controversy, mathematics. I remember talking about it at the time. I wish that YouTube was like nationalized and that we had these free speech platform or like these, I wish these social media platforms were regulated in accordance under the First Amendment. If they were nationalized, that would be cool. And it would, prevent censorship and stuff. Unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. Like I could sit here and talk about why that would be awesome. I wish that would happen. Unfortunately, I don't think it will. And yeah, grifting and audience capture. I mean, in media in general, in a capitalistic system, that kind of stuff is rewarded. That's just the way it is. So that's what I would say. And as far as tuning into mainstream media, sometimes I like tuning into mainstream media just as like background noise. Like I think it's sometimes kind of, calming or whatever, just to have it on in the background. Like, like before a debate or something like that, or if like the president's about to address the nation, sometimes I'll just like turn on like ABC or some stupid bullshit and just like have it on for like 40 or 30 minutes before the debate starts, just to hear what these bobbleheads are saying. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I was walking around just nice day the other day. Had my headphones in, and I was like, you know what? I've never really checked out Pod Save America. Let's see what they're saying on their episode, where they kind of take a small victory lap because they did come out ahead of the mainstream media and call for Joe Biden to step down. And they were just sucking his cock, bro. They were just fucking giving the dude the wettest, sloppier, hockpua fellatio I'd ever heard in my entire life. And I was like, woof, okay. And then I put on Democracy Now! And I was like, this is more like it. This is my speech. Shout out Jamie
Pod
Goodman.
Save is so cringe.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway, shout out to you, Mathematics. That was a really great question and a follow-up right there. Looks like we got another one from the Super Chats.
Shout out to you, Jose. Thank you so much for the $5. Huge fan. If there was no corruption and every politician cared and worked hard for the people, what do you think is the best form of government? Jesus, I mean,
Fully automated luxury communism.
yeah, there you go. I mean, honestly, why not? Straight up, Star Trek style, baby.
100%. Just pursue knowledge, truth, justice, and creative aspiration.
Yep.
Thrive. Brat.
Yep.
2024.
There you go. Shout out to you, man, though. Really appreciate the $5.
Yeah, glad you're a huge fan.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not at all realistic. Sometimes I think about what it would look like, in a kind of a like anarcho-primitivist return to a pre-industrialized society.
Yeah, until he gets his foot broken.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
So Gavin gets one headache and he's like, where's the Tylenol that I'm melting down?
I'm just saying that might be the only actual way to for the human species to survive in the long term.
Do we deserve to survive? Let's have the hard questions here.
Yeah. Anyway, shout out to you, Jose. Thank you so much for the $5. And also shout out to you, Robin G. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Alec Baldwin's case was dismissed by the judge, but do you think he should have been found guilty? Should actors be responsible for gun safety on set? I would say it's a very complicated case, Robin, but it's made I think Alec Baldwin is more guilty because he was not just an actor, but he was also a producer on that film. Apparently the set was being run quite unprofessionally.
By scabs.
By scabs, non-union labor. So I do think that, it's, like I said, very complex. But yes, I do believe that if he was found guilty for like involuntary manslaughter or something like that, then yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I think that would be pretty sound. Obviously, there's a lot of conspiracies. I still don't understand how the bullet ended up in the gun. I think it's genuinely crazy and warrants further investigation because it genuinely just doesn't make sense why there would be a bullet in that prop gun. It doesn't make any sense. Someone put it there.
Did they put the armorist in jail?
I think the armorist.
I think she
down.
get sentenced to some amount of jail time.
I think so.
I
that sounds right.
haven't followed the case that closely, but I know that she was the daughter of a very well-known armorist. And I totally agree with Gavin. We covered this when it was unfolding, and it was the real criminal element. What leads Alec Baldwin to be across the board guilty is not only was he holding the gun, not only was he the man who pulled the trigger. Yeah. You don't ever point a gun at somebody and look and pull the fucking trigger. I don't even play. I don't.
He says he didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's a bullshit. Yeah. Oh, no, bro. I swear to God, I didn't pull the trigger at that guy. I pointed the gun right at him and it just went off. No, you squeezed the fucking trigger, and that's what happened. The person got shot. You shot her fucking just dead on. Insane. Even if you thought it was a blank in there, you shouldn't have fucking done it. So at the bare minimum, it's criminal negligence and manslaughter. But this guy's a celebrity, and so he can get away with beating the crap out of his wife, and he can get away with killing a poor woman with children. Absolutely insane. I'm full on Fox News pilled when it comes to Alec Baldwin. I wanted that guy to go down for killing that lady.
Yeah, here's the only thing that I worry about. A lot of people, because of this stupid tragic mistake, there's new regulations being proposed where now it's all gunfire is going to just be like CGI, and they're not even going to fire prop guns anymore. That's a big movement now, which I think is total bullshit. It's ruining the magic of the movies. There's no reason why we have to just because this dumb asshole didn't know what he was doing. That if you think about stunt driving, in big car crash scenes or car chase scenes, there's just as much potential for danger. There's just as much potential for a fatality to occur if just one person made the wrong move. But if someone died in a stunt crash scene, no one would be like, now no more actual cars in movies. They all have to be CGI now. No more actual crashes. No more stunt drivers. That would be crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to have an overreaction to this and be like, this is, we have to completely change safety protocol in the industry because of it. I think that's stupid. I think there's always potential for danger on a movie set. That's just something you have to figure in. But what really needs to be taken account for is the way the set was being run, the non-union labor. That's the dangerous thing, not using a gun with a blank in it.
100%. And I think that the best way that you reinforce that is you say, I don't care who you are. I don't care what career you've had. If you fuck around with a gun and you shoot somebody and you hurt them, you go to jail. And that's the end of discussion. And that's why you don't cheap out with the armorists. And that's why you don't hire scabs. And, I totally agree with you. I know Dwayne The Rock Johnson came out immediately after she got shot. And she was like, that's it. My production company's only doing gun shots in post. And a lot of people were triggered about it. I was like, why do you care? Dwayne The Rock Johnson hasn't been in a good movie ever. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
It is what it is. I think that he would be absolutely in jail if he was not Alec Baldwin, and that pisses me off.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Shout out to you, Robin G. Really appreciate it. And that is still a crazy story. Like I said, still no real answer on how the bullet got in the gun and who put the bullet in the gun. Makes no sense. Like I said one time, it would be like if I just went to take a drink out of my coffee and there was like acid in the coffee. You know what I'm saying? And I just like boiled my face with acid because and then someone was like, well, it was unintentional. Like, but who put the acid in the coffee cup? Like that would still be a question that needs to be answered. In the same way, there is no reason, zero reason why an actual live round of ammunition would ever be in a prop gun unless someone had malicious intentions and was like, I'm going to put a bullet in a prop gun and get someone killed. Like it sounds conspiratorial, but there's no other reason why it would have been there.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. The only other time it happened was in The Crow, right? So it's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm not sure what the explanation for that was. But yeah, that was also crazy.
Shout out to you, All Things New, maintaining the left's reputation of only having the world's most unlikable people. Let's go. Y'all need to accept the better of two evils, common sense, like Sam Cedar. Grow up and vote blue always, either for direct benefits or to stave off Republicans. Why can't we not have anybody with sense on the left? It's always one of two things. It's either we need a revolution, man, or you got to just take it up the ass for the left. Come on, bro. Fuck you. You're a white person with privilege. It's like, shut up. Can we just have a real talk here? Can we have a real talk? Let's talk tears. Okay, Donald Trump, the worst of the worst. Kamala Harris, clearly a better option. Sufficient? No. There we go. Boom. Will I vote for Kamala Harris? No, because we have an electoral college in this country and I wasn't born yesterday. So in the state of Missouri, don't have to vote for Kamala Harris. Do I hope she wins? God bless her. Wishing her the best. If she does adopt a ceasefire position, if she does pick Tim Walz for president or vice president, then we could negotiate me giving more vocal support to her. Until that happens, it's not going to happen. I don't intend to vote for her. But I'm also not opposed to walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. I'm not going to be like, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are just the same. Why are you not having a red line in Pennsylvania? Don't you know that you need to vote green with their 1.6% national polling? Like, it's just stupid. Okay, so let's all be adults in the room and let's talk about it. We can play the cards we're dealt and that's it. I'm in Missouri. I'm going to play my cards. I'm going to vote against fucking Josh Hawley, right? I'm going to vote for the Democrat, Lucas Coons, right? Even though I don't think he's going to win. I'm going to vote down ballot in Kansas City because that shit matters to me. And when I show up, I'll think about voting for somebody at the top of the ticket, but it's not even my priority.
Yeah. Shout out to you, All Things New. I don't really know what you're talking about. Like, I mean, for the most part, Zach and I feel like honestly, we probably do vote blue no matter who when it comes to like down ballot races. Like, we're going to vote for the Democratic senator in our state. We're going to vote for the Democratic governor. Like I used to live in Kansas. We both used to live in Kansas. When Laura Kelly was up for re-election, I voted for Laura Kelly, the governor of Kansas, who's a Democrat, because obviously she's way better than the Republican candidate. When it comes to the presidency, I do think it's a little bit different because unlike down ballot Democrats, the president is responsible for foreign policy. They're the commander in chief. So you do have to think about things like Gaza a little bit more when you're just like cheerleading for Joe Biden or whatever. That is completely unpalatable to us as people who care about the incredibly destructive effects of Democrats' foreign policy. So I do think it's a little bit, harder to just be like a vote blue no matter who cheerleader when you're talking about, someone like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris versus a Tim Walz. I'm a little bit happier, a little more comfortable to just fanboy out over like Tim Walz or Bernie Sanders or something like that. They don't have nearly as much blood on their hands, right? But yeah, when it comes to Kamala Harris, I'll acknowledge that she's better than Trump. I'll say a million times that I hope she beats Donald Trump. But I'm not just gonna become like a propagandist either.
100%. Shout out to you, All Things New. Really appreciate you coming in here with your shit livery. We don't get enough of that over here these days, so really appreciate that. And shout out to you, Glenn Tafada. Thoughts on reform versus revolution, or is it even a binary? Well, it's one of those things where it depends on if you want to have a practical conversation or if you want to, put on our tweed jackets and stroke our chins for a while, right? Are we going to have a revolution in America during our lifetime? Most likely not. No, that's not going to happen. Certainly not within the next decade, 2 decades. It's not going to happen. Okay, people are deluding themselves into making that on the table, right? It's the same people that will be like, we need a general strike tomorrow. And it's like, okay, that's not going to happen. So let's live in the real world. Let's start talking in the real world. And so, of course, you have to do reform while you're pursuing whatever broader revolutionary goals you have. So it's a step-by-step thing. One of the things Olaimi Oloran said to us when we first had her on the podcast was that you're part of a long-term struggle. She was like, do you think this shit happens overnight?
Do you think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Right. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that this, like, no, of course not. We're always pushing for reform. We're always trying to change the tide. We're always trying to make the world better than we found it. And that is the effort towards revolution. But it's not going to be picking up arms and overthrowing a nuclear arsenal equipped government with a lot more resources than us.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think it's a stupid fake dichotomy or binary or whatever you want to call it, Glintifada. Because like, if you actually talk to real activists, like, I mean, at the end of the day, they are pursuing reforms. Even the most revolutionary activists, it's not like their activism is just like throwing Molotov cocktails at the state capitol while they wear a, freaking bandana over their neck. I mean, maybe like 0.01%, like the Antifa people that ride around in buses and dress in all black and stuff. But they're not really accomplishing anything. Let's be honest. I'm not pearl clutching about it. I'm not saying, how dare you, terrorist, leftist, radical. I'm not, doing any of that. But let's be honest, the vast majority of people that are actually fighting for real change in this country, even in a revolutionary sense, they are pursuing reform. I mean, look at the folks at like Casey Tenets here in Kansas City, or the Free Palestine movement.
Yeah, all head off KC.
Yeah, these are revolutionary movements for sure. They have a revolutionary spirit. But at the end of the day, you still have to fight for reforms. You can't just like burn down the White House and put a freaking Antifa flag in the ruins and say now everything is good. Like now we have a communist utopia or something. That's just not realistic. That's not how it works.
Yep, absolutely. But shout out to you, Glitchifada, and shout out to you, Keldo Head. What's your opinion on Boogie 2988 faking cancer? I have no idea. I don't have an opinion on that. I think faking cancer is bad. What about you, Gavin?
I have no idea of what you're talking about. I think I've heard of Boogie.
I was like, is this a guy in our chat, Boogie?
No, I think it's like some content creator. I've definitely heard of Boogie. If you're just talking about Boogie,
Jungle Boogie.
But if they faked cancer, that's pretty messed up. I mean, there's no defense for that.
No, bro, I thought I did. You know what? I did one of those at-home tests that they send you from overseas, and I was looking at it. I thought it said cancer. I was pretty sure, and so I thought, well, let's go ahead and get that GoFundMe up. But anyway, shout out to you, Keldo Head. And shout out to you, Michelle Carpenter. So y'all's email was hard to find, but I got it. I would love to see you guys talk about / talk to our incredible local Palestinian community, KC Comrade. Yeah, dude, definitely. Thanks for shooting us an email, and we'll definitely take a look at that. Really appreciate you being in the chat, and much love to our local KC comrades.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Michelle. Really appreciate that. I'll check out the email, and we'll definitely get you on in the near future. We'd love to chat for a little bit about what you all are up to organizing wise. So thank you so much for that, Michelle. Really appreciate the super chats. And Pedro the Lion, Sega or Nintendo? Nintendo.
Not even close.
What is Sega? Freaking
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, I'm
That's
like,
it.
Lame. I'm not anti-Sonic, but come on, there's no competition. I'm definitely an old school Mario fan. I've been playing freaking Mario since the Game Boy Advance back in the 2004 or whatever.
Yeah, dude, this guy's an OG Nintendo. 2004. Had you even heard of Nintendo then?
Maybe it was like 2008 or something. I don't know. I just said a number, but I've been playing that shit for a while. Yeah. Never gets old, honestly.
Yeah, dude. Back then, it wasn't cool to fuck with Nintendo. Back when I was a kid, you know what I mean? It was like real underground and niche. No, I'm kidding. Shout out to you, Pedro the Line. And shout out to you, Kelly. Curious how you both feel about the new insane anti-Harris rhetoric. Wild how far the right, how far right can't help themselves in Klan posting the most racist and misogynistic garbage. Yeah, I'm not surprised. This is kind of what the right wing does. We knew as soon as Kamala ran for president that there was going to be a bunch of right wing, racist as fuck, misogynistic as fuck attacks against her. I don't know if you guys remember the Obama years, but I saw a lot of racist shit here in Kansas City during the Obama years that I didn't forget. And so I'm not too surprised, but I am disgusted.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I'm not surprised, but it is definitely pretty reprehensible. That being said, I think it actually ultimately will help Kamala Harris. I think it's a terrible look for the Republicans. And I think that the fact that all of this unhinged rhetoric is kind of being exposed at the same exact time that the true nature of JD Vance and his ideology is being exposed. I think it's just like perfect timing for the Democrats to paint this picture of Republicans being like super fringe, out of touch weirdos, kind of incel coded, just bizarre, people that are out of touch with the normal American and how they think about like women and black people at this point. Because like you have to think, even though we live in like a racist and sexist country, most normie Americans that consider themselves apolitical or independent or whatever, they don't want to think of themselves or their country as like a racist or sexist country. They want to think of themselves as just like, oh no, I'm colorblind at best. That's what a lot of people are just like striving for. Again, they're not super in plug with or in touch with all this discourse, but they're just like, yeah, like who cares? I don't want to obsess about this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Shout out to you, Kelly. Really appreciate that. And we've got one more from All Things New. Voting for blue president is a step-by-step act. Otherwise, right wingers would actively send troops. Gaza full Hitler, blue president. You didn't respond to any of our arguments. You did not say a single thing about the Electoral College and why it's irrelevant to vote for a blue president in the Electoral College. So I don't know how else to respond to you other than I agree with you that right wingers would effectively send troops to Gaza and go full Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. And my position has basically always been that if you live in a solidly red or solidly blue state, then that's when you really should vote third party. Like Zach and I live in Missouri. We're going to vote third party to try to help the Green Party get to 5%. If you live in California, not really any point in voting Democrat or Republican because the state's obviously going to go blue. But I've always said that if you live in a swing state, it's a different calculation. I don't voter shame anyone, but if I lived in Pennsylvania or Georgia, I probably would vote for Kamala Harris in November, straight up. So I don't judge people that come to that conclusion. I don't think anyone should judge people that come to that conclusion because even though I am voting green on election night, you can fucking guarantee the fact that I'm going to be hoping Trump goes down. I want to see the right wingers cry. I want to see the meltdown from the MAGA right online. It's going to be hilarious.
100%. Dude, do you remember that like Freedom Eagle guy that we debated the other day? Or not debated the other day, sorry, like years ago. Whatever that guy, Red Freedom Eagle or whatever.
Yeah, that was funny, dude.
I was looking at his channel. He's exploded in popularity, dude. He kicks our ass. Every video he puts out has like 200,000 views, even though we dog walked him on. It's so easy
as a right winger.
Yeah, dude. Anyway, shout out to you, All Things New. Really appreciate the super chat contribution, even though we disagree a little bit on practice. But we've got another question from Ronwell. You want to take this one, Gavin?
Yeah, Ronwell, I'm just going to answer the question part of this, though, because there's a lot of just random stuff, and I don't know how to pronounce all these people's names. But Ronwell says, what movie types are you interested in and why? I mean, that's a pretty broad question. It's not like there's any one genre of movie that I totally detest. Maybe the closest genre that I totally detest is like just straight up Oscar bait movies. Those kind of like Oscar season biopic movies that come out where it's just like, a movie based on Stephen Hawking and it's supposed to pull your heartstrings and win Eddie Redmayne an Oscar. I hate that kind of shit. But other than those Oscar bait kind of movies, I really think pretty much any genre has validity. If I had to say my favorite genre, I would probably just say like art house movies or experimental films. I've always gravitated towards those kind of movies. But I love everything from thrillers to horror films specifically. I mean, that's a big thing for me for sure. But you go on to say, while I like superhero movies, I might lose interest in seeing most of the MCU projects and only watch a few, such as Deadpool and Wolverine, which I plan on watching later. Yeah, I've pretty much completely lost interest in most of the MCU stuff as well. I don't have plans on seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, but I am excited for the upcoming rebooted DC cinematic universe led by James Gunn. I think that actually has a lot of potential.
Yeah, the musical with the Joker also seems pretty
Mhm.
fun. My favorite filmmaker, it's pretty tough. It's either got to be Michael Bay or Quentin Tarantino. Other than that, I do just love to watch the classics, Boondock Saints, The Matrix, Fight Club, American Beauty if I'm feeling like stretching myself. So that'd be my response, Ron. Well, I do love a good crossover, though. That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana is still one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, shout out to you, Ronwell. Thank you so much for the Patreon support. And let's move on to another question from Tony DeMeo.
He's
Zach, you
double
wanna read this
dipping.
one?
What's
Oh,
up?
he's more than double dipping. He's quadruple dipping. But do you want to read this one, Zach?
Sure. You think it's true that Hollywood has run out of new ideas, and that's why we get so many prequels, reboots, remakes, and sequels? Or is it a capitalist problem because the studios are dumb and only care about making money from the films that make the most money? Bing, bing, bing. Yep. They would rather have a huge film make $1 billion than have, 100 films make $10 million or 50 films make $50 million, or $20 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think there are a lot of original movies that do come out that a lot of people just don't really talk about or go see. So it's not that Hollywood has completely run out of ideas. There's a lot of really interesting original ideas that either have been produced or that directors out there want to get made but can't find the money for. It's just that sequels and IP in general is the safest bet from the studio's perspective. Like if you look at the new Disney film that's out right now, well, there's Deadpool and Wolverine, which is Disney, but also the Inside Out 2, right? The sequel. That's I think it became like the highest grossing animated film of all time or something wild like that. And again, it's a sequel. That's a safe bet. If you're an investor at Disney, then that's what you're going to hope that Bob Iger announces on the investor call, right? Not some weird new original project that you've never heard of and that no one else knows about. No, you're hoping that they announce something that everyone knows about, Frozen 3. There you go, $1 billion. It could be the biggest piece of garbage in the world. That movie's making $1 billion straight up. So that's what they go with.
100%. But shout out to you, Tony DeMeo. What do we got up next, Gavin?
Let's take a look. Another one from Tony DeMeo. Shout out to you, man. Of all the films you have seen multiple times in theaters when it was brand new, which is your favorite? I would say the movie that I think I saw the most times in theaters was The Beach Bum by Harmony Korine. I saw that, I believe, 6 times on the big screen.
Fuck.
Yeah, maybe 5, but I think it was 6 times, and I loved it each time.
Yeah. I think I saw Boyhood 4 times when I was in high school because I was working at AMC at the time and I could see it for free. And it's cringy in hindsight, but at the time I thought it was like the most inspirational film I'd ever seen. So
it is a really good movie.
it's a
not
really
that
good movie
cringe.
too, but it's like, wow, you could have picked something a little more interesting. I don't know. That was my favorite at the time, and that's the movie I've seen the most times in theaters. So
Yeah, when you work at a movie theater, it's great sometimes to just wander into a movie that's playing and you just sit down.
I used to do that when I was ushering, just like take a break. And there, Boyhood was never like fully set. There would be like 5 people in there in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and you just go and watch it for like 30 minutes because you wouldn't have fuck all to do.
Yeah, that movie's a great soundtrack too.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Anyway.
Although
Linklater always has a good soundtrack.
yeah, 100%. Anyway, shout out to you, Tony. Thank you so much for the question. And thank you, Aaron, the metal theologian. Are you guys going to do something so Patreon supporters can watch replays of your live streams? I've gone with Patreon over YouTube membership. But it kind of, because it's my understanding that Patreon takes a smaller cut than YouTube, but it kind of sucks as a supporter to miss out completely when I can't catch you live. Yeah, Aaron, we've had a few people ask us about this. And what I would say is that if you want to watch the live streams after the fact and that's what you value, just become a YouTube member and cancel your Patreon membership if you only want to do one. We totally understand. We're not going to, be upset at all or anything if you cancel your Patreon and become a member instead. That's just the easiest way to watch the live streams. Unfortunately, there's no way to, get Patreon and YouTube linked up and work it that way. So unfortunately, we would if we could, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, our options would be to unlist them on YouTube, which would deprioritize our growth in YouTube. And we're trying to kind of expand the show and hit a new era. Gavin and I had stalled this thing out at like 28,000 subs for a long time. And now that we're starting to grow, we're just trying to play YouTube's game a little bit more and try and grow and try and, enlarge the community. It's $3 a month to become a member if anybody wants to watch the live streams after the fact. And then if you just, really are itching to support the show and see us succeed, then yeah, you can still throw us a couple of extra bucks on Patreon and all that jazz. So yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you, Metal Theologian, for your longtime support. I know you've been in the chat and in Patreon for a while. So we really appreciate you hanging with us for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Really do appreciate that. And Zach, do you want to respond to this? Oh, this is one about food. So perfect.
Hell yeah. All right, Ramon. Got into a recent spat with a family member. Since y'all are pretty bougie about food and flavors, wonder what your thoughts may be on the subject. I used the word umami to describe the food I'd eaten. Popcorn with nutritional yeast, kimchi, seasoning, lime juice. And oh boy, was he bothered by it. He feels that people that use the word umami were just trying to sound like and know it all to describe food. What's your thoughts? Also, what foods, textures, ingredients would fall under something described as rich and versus flavorful? By the way, I never hear people say that. Usually say it tastes good. So umami is actually more like it's a sensory experience. It's like salty, sweet, sour, right? It's a flavor experience that you
I thought
have.
it was more like a textural kind of a thing.
Mm-mm. It's
Really?
actually like this. It's actually like one of the experiences that you can have on your palate, and it's typically with like a mushroom or meatier kind of.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was more textural, because people say like mushrooms have the same like meaty umami or whatever.
It's because it's actually triggering the same glands on your taste buds that meat does, and it makes you salivate. So that's why when people who are, and I don't have to tell Gavin this, people who are vegetarian, you don't get a ton to sink your teeth into.
Right.
That's why mushrooms are popular, but they kind of double down because it actually activates the same sensory.
So it just means like savory essentially.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it means like technically savory. It's like it's one of those like je ne sais quoi things. It's kind of like it tastes like umami. Umami is an accurate way to describe food, similarly to how it was. See, that's exactly what I said. Anyway, back up from downstairs. Google.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense.
It's like MSG is umami versus like salt is salty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, MSG is still so salty though.
Well, it's because it's monosodium glutamate, so it does have salt in it too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. For some reason, I always thought it had to do with texture, but that's so it's just like savory, but not a different.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, dude. The next time you come into Afterward, I'll give you some of my umami brine, and then I'll have you try it next to the regular brine, and you'll be like, "Oh, this is umami," and it'll be liquid both times, so you'll be able to get it without the textural element as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had things that have been described that way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I just mean that's like a fun way to like do the side by side.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Also,
that's
rich.
Oh, no, you're good.
I was just going to say rich versus flavorful. Rich is like, think about like a super decadent dessert, right? Think about something that's like a German chocolate cake, right? That you get at a fancy bakery and you take one bite out of it and it gets the deep, dark chocolate notes, but you're not exactly like trying to wolf it down. You know what I mean? I would say that dark chocolate is a very rich, very approachable example because people, if you compare that to milk chocolate, which is like an abomination, most people, I feel like, know that milk chocolate is like mass produced kind of garbage, phony chocolate. It's not really good. It's so that you can eat a bunch of it at once and not get full and not get tired of it. Whereas traditionally dessert foods were served very small and it was to finish at the end of your meal and it would get cloying over time. And that's where the term rich would come from. Oh, that's very rich. It's not something that I want to wolf down. It's something that I'm going to slowly enjoy.
Yeah, that's so true. Like if you have a traditional like French like chocolate mousse, for example, like that is very rich. Like you don't want to eat a bunch of that. You don't want to eat like a whole freaking bowl of it. You want a nice little like container of it, right? So that's totally true. That's pretty funny, Ramon, that your friend got so triggered by you just like talking about food. That's pretty funny. People get so like insecure. It's the same thing with movies. Like some people like when they see like a really out there art house film or something, like it makes them mad. They're like I didn't understand that and now I'm mad. It's like chill, like it's okay. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to like get everything.
Nobody really gets it either. It's just you deciding that you're confident enough in your own interpretation. And that's why one of the things that's the best part about becoming a movie fan that's really in depth. Like I remember Gavin and I saw this movie Mother together and I was like walking out of it. We're at the urinal in the Alamo Draft House. It's not an Alamo Draft House anymore. And I'm like, that is him making a movie about his career. That's him making a movie about his career and his failure with Noah. And then I remember I was talking to the girl I was dating at the time And she was like, no, it's not. He said it's about climate change. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what he thinks it's about. This is definitely what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, death of the author.
Also, things
kind of a
can be
deal.
about multiple things. You know what I'm saying? Like you can have when you make a piece of art that's as like vast and complex as an entire feature film, usually it's not like you just set out with one single thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of different things are going to color that. But I totally agree with your interpretation of Mother, by the way.
But anyway, shout out to you, Ramon. And we've got one more from the patron community.
Yeah, before we get to that, let's quickly answer.
Gavin loves to just be like, no, fuck that. I want to do something different right after I've
just wanna
introduced the
draw- I
topic.
wanna draw it out. I like to draw it.
Let's pull this up. No, fuck that. Let's do this.
Let's answer Susie Stone's very generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Susie. I once accidentally ate my dog's treat, and it was the most umami salami I've ever tasted. Is that true? Do you actually eat your dog's treat, Susie? If so, how did that happen? That's
I mean, it was
crazy.
probably, if it looked like some salami, I guess I could see if you just had like cured meat in the refrigerator.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a dog could. I guess just regular salami could technically be a dog treat if your dog can handle, salami. Is that cool if Malcolm ate a piece of salami?
I'm sure it would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, shout out to you, Susie. Really appreciate the generosity. Thank you so much for that. And that's pretty gross.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Susie Stone. Hold on, though. Don't want to get to this patron question too soon. Don't want to get to it too soon, everybody. Let's really
draw it out.
Let's draw it out.
The anticipation.
This
This is a good one too. This is a good
patient.
one.
It's from Kevin. Last
sent a
but
banger.
certainly not least. Gavin, take it away.
All right, let's hear out Kevin. Kevin says, 1, why do you think the online political sphere has appropriated 4chan and incel terminology based? Okay, first of all, 4chan and incels did not come up with the term based. It's actually a rapper. What's his name?
Lil B, the based god.
Yeah, Lil B, the based god. He came up with the term based. That's actually, if anything, African American culture being appropriated, much like most terminology. A lot of things actually come from AAVE. So I don't know if normie. I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing is true of normie. Honestly, I'm not sure where that comes from.
People have used normie all the time to describe people who are like not in the scene. Like, oh, they're not punk, they're normies. Like, oh, they're not in this, they're normies. Like, I don't think
it's possible that some of these terms like also were popular on 4chan, and some of them like Chad, I wouldn't be surprised if it did come from 4chan. Honestly, the reason why some of them like Chad probably became popular is just because of memes. The people that use like 4chan and stuff like that a lot, they do make a lot of memes, and those memes get spread. And I mean, think about like the Pepe meme. It's the same thing. That was kind of popularized by 4chan, but then normies were like, hey, this is actually just a good meme. Let's just use it for normal things, right? It actually might have been the reverse. People might have been originally using it normally, and then 4chan incels like appropriated it. I'm not sure. But either way, it's just, memes are memes. They can be used for good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to you. Ava Chris Tyson situation has led to more scrutiny on Mr. Beast. Until recently, any criticism was retorted with, so what? He's giving away money and donating to charity. Now there's allegations of poor conditions for his contestants, hiring friends and families of employees to compete in his game, secretly knowing that Tyson was talking to minors and more. What are your thoughts on him? In my opinion, he has the Antichrist aura. 3, looks like a lot of people have true disdain for JD Vance. I swear it's his face, to the point that the hoax of him violating the couch seems believable. Would you swap or stick with him if you're Trump? I think Trump has to stick with him. We've talked about that. I obviously would have never picked him. And as far as Mr. Beast, we've been on the anti-Mr. Beast train on the left for basically as long as we've known about Mr. Beast. In fact, even when a lot of lefties tried to celebrate Mr. Beast, I took to Twitter to make sure that everybody knew the Vanguard did not fuck with Mr. Beast, because I think he also has the Antichrist aura. I don't fuck with him. What do you think, Gavin?
Yeah, I've never been like, I've never had too much of an opinion on Mr. Beast, to be honest. Like, I don't think he's like the freaking Antichrist as much as you probably do, Zach. I don't watch his videos.
His eyes, bro. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gives off weird like capitalist energy. Like, I'm a young capitalist changing the world one video at a time, or like, it's annoying. It's not for me. But I don't think it's like the worst thing ever for people to watch. Like, if you're consuming content online and you're just watching some like wholesome video of like Mr. Beast giving 100 people a house or something. Like it's not that bad. Most people that seem into his content are just like normies, from what I can tell. It's not like they're really hyper radicalized.
There goes that 4chan language, Gavin.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't know. It doesn't seem terrible. Like, I mean, it is terrible, the fact that like people have to rely on Mr. Beast to give them a house or to like fix their blindness or whatever. Like, that's terrible. But I just don't really think it's like people that get so into like hating on Mr. Beast. I'm just like, whatever. He's some fucking guy. Who cares? I think it's dumb when he talks about like being president and stuff like that. But it's just like normie YouTube culture. It's the same way that I don't really care if people watch like a Logan Paul video or like a freaking, there's all these YouTubers out there. I don't care. Like, go have nuts. As far as this like Ava,
go have nuts.
Go have nuts. Yeah. As far as this Ava person, I mean, I think it's unfortunate because this person is trans, and obviously that's resulting in a lot of disgusting hatred and people saying like, we warned Mr. Beast that Ava was a groomer and he didn't listen, and now we've been proven right. So that's really unfortunate, as always, when someone who does something bad is like trans. Of course, people blame it on them being trans. So that sucks, but I don't really give a shit. I haven't been following the drama. I'm sure that, whatever they did was gross and inappropriate, and I'm glad that Mr. Beast fired them or whatever happened.
Yeah, I think the big problem I have with Mr. Beast is that I don't like that he's taken this charity model and pretending that he's doing all this good work to have a Jeff Bezos market share grab where he doesn't pay any taxes because he is donating all of his money. Meanwhile, he's getting a shit ton of market share and market revenue, and he's constantly reinvesting all of it, and he does it under the guise of charity. It's just like, I think down the line he's going to do something fucked up and nefarious. I can feel it in my bones. But other than that, I agree with what Gavin said. I don't really care about people watching the content. I think about his psyche and what he's going to try and do when he's like 35.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, I know he's talked about running for president. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope if it did happen that, it wouldn't be successful. Lose. Yeah, who knows, man? That would be wild. Yeah, what if in like 2034, it's just like the Democratic primary is like Mr. Beast and like Taylor Swift or shit like that? That would be crazy. Anyway,
I guess we've got the JD Vance story now.
Yeah, let's talk about these pretty crazy leaked JD Vance emails, and feel free to keep sending in questions, guys. If anyone else has a question, we'll definitely get to that in a minute here, but we are going to talk a little bit about Mr. JD
Wait,
Vance.
hold on. No, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
All right.
Oh yeah, dude. Are we gonna start? Do you want to start with the Kelly? Oh, it actually does look like we milked the super chat out of that. You're welcome.
Oh, nice.
This is for Zach improving his pronunciation on the Kamehameha. It looks like there's no need for me to rely on Gavin anymore. LOL. Yeah, Gavin, go ahead and give it once over. Nobody does it like you.
Kamehameha. There you go. Shout out to you, Ronwell. And yeah, thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate that, bro. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. So a pretty crazy New York Times article came out this morning with some more leaked emails from JD Vance. This just seemingly never ends. All the, resurfacing texts, emails, podcast interviews from this guy revealing just an increasingly incoherent and all over the place ideology, proving that he's a total flip-flopper that used to believe one thing and now has a completely different ideology convenient for his career.
How did the Trump campaign do absolutely no, oppo research, if you will? How did they do no investigation into his background? Did they just not understand? Did they just not care? Did they not understand that it was? I think they didn't appreciate how big of a disaster it would be, and they were also probably just riding so high off of the Trump failed assassination attempt and then the RNC running against Joe Biden. But Jesus Christ, this has been the gift that keeps on giving to the Democrats. I would quite literally send a fruit basket every single hour on the hour directly from the DNC to JD Vance's office.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sorry, I'm just I was trying to send myself this New York Times article real quick so I can actually pull it up. But yeah, pretty crazy details, as you guys can see here. In October of 2014, in the wake of the killing of Michael Brown, an 18-year-old black man, Mr. Vance said, "I hate the police." He said, "Given the number of negative experiences I've had in the past few years, I can't imagine what a black guy goes through." So here we see JD Vance basically just acting like a normal person, instead of this crazy fringe right-wing weirdo that he's molded himself into. That's one of multiple examples. Let me pull up this New York Times article real quick and we can take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on to this, I think that it just shows that almost none of the goons that they pull up in the Republican Party are serious ideologues. This is just a guy that knows that he can't be successful in American politics unless he goes to the right wing. He knows that it's going to open doors for him, Peter Thiel money, clout, political celebrity amongst the most vulnerable and delusional American voters. And he's just going to parrot them a line of bullshit that he himself has never once believed in his entire life. I think that's par for the course for every Republican. Every once in a while, you'll have a true believer. I think Mike Pence actually was a true believer. I think that was a guy who, if you put a gun to his head, he would say a prayer and believe he was going to heaven. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
JD Vance, not so. The problem is he has no counterbalance to Donald Trump because Donald Trump also doesn't believe in anything but Donald Trump, right? I think that's what made Mike Pence a savvier choice, because he had an iron block of people who were going to support him, and it validated Trump's case. Like, oh, I actually am a Christian. Forget all that other shit you've ever heard about me.
That's so true, 100%. Because, despite the fact that Trump now has the evangelical base 100% on lock, that actually was a question in like 2015, the first time he was running for president, as the whole Republican Party kind of became acclimated to the concept of him being in charge. And a lot of the evangelicals at first were, a little bit squeamish about supporting Trump, given the fact that he was a womanizer, he cheated on his wife, been divorced, all this kind of stuff that was obviously completely out of line with an actual Christian ideology. It exposed them as hypocrites to support him. So we actually needed Mike Pence in order to win those people over and really solidify that demographic. JD Vance adds absolutely nothing to the Trump ticket. The only people he really appeals to is non-college educated white men, and Trump already has that demographic 100% on lock, so it doesn't broaden the coalition at all. And if anything, it just turns off suburban women and women in general, given a lot of the statements that have been resurfaced from JD Vance. But yeah, this is a pretty crazy article from the New York Times. 5 excerpts from JD Vance's emails to a transgender classmate. So a former Yale Law School classmate actually leaked these messages, 90 emails and text messages with Mr. Vance to the New York Times. Apparently, this is someone who used to be friends with JD Vance back, again, when he was a just kind of normie Ivy League liberal.
Which is crazy, right? What happens to you as a adult that takes you from being a normie Ivy Leaguer, somebody who has been exposed to the broader world, right? We're not talking about a person that's from the boonies, that's only ever been read the Bible, that thinks some antiquated ideas. You know what I mean? We're talking about a guy that has been highly educated and he's evolved himself. And so we know that it was a LARP. He decided at whatever point in his life when he diverged from the liberal lawyer. I'm not saying that he was ever woke, right? But I'm saying he was probably a run-of-the-mill coastal guy, trying really hard to fit in and not be.
Oh, he sounded actually pretty woke, which is the funny thing about this article.
Yeah. Well, then here, let's plow into it.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the things he said. I already mentioned this one. I hate the police. This was in 2014 in the wake of Michael Brown's murder.
But my dad hates the police and he'll vote for Donald Trump. So let's see.
That's true. That is true. In 2015, in December, he said, what seems different to me is that the Republican Party offers nothing that's as attractive as the demagogue. Mr. Vance was opposed to Trump's candidacy. In December of that year, Nelson wrote to Mr. Vance that a Muslim friend had said that women wearing hijabs no longer felt safe doing simple things like going to the grocery store. Vance responded. He said, I'm obviously outraged at Trump's rhetoric, and I worry most of all how welcome Muslim citizens feel in their own country. But I also think that people have always believed crazy shit, and there have always been demagogues willing to exploit the people who believe crazy shit. So this is just normie, kind of NPR analysis, you know what I'm saying, of Trump and his racism and demagoguery.
Can you pull that back up also?
Oh, this one?
Just that, and there have always been demagogues willing to exploit the people who believe crazy shit. Talk about a self-confession right there. That's who you became. You became the person you just described And you obviously know that it's wrong. You know it's immoral. And you're so selfish. You're so narcissistic. Your hubris level is off the charts that you think, oh, I'm entitled to behave this way. Oh, I'm entitled to mislead the public because it's actually going to be really good for me and my family.
Yep, exactly. And I'm sure he has his own, internal justifications. Oh, this is what I have to do to rise the ranks in politics. And then once Trump is out of the way, my actual ideology will be what's important and what I can further. Of course, these are always the internal justifications that people make. In June of 2016, he says, I recognize now that this may not accurately reflect how you think of yourself. And for that, I'm really sorry. Apparently, he inaccurately referred to his trans friend as a lesbian in Hillbilly Elegy. So this one's not that important. Just him apologizing to his trans friend.
Also, kind of bullshit to say how you think of yourself instead of how you are. Just to give a little note, kind of a half-assed apology for some. Like, just don't send an apology then.
Yeah. To be fair, his friend sounds pretty cool. They responded and said, if you had written genderqueer radical pragmatist, nobody would know what you mean. So they were understanding and seemingly a little bit self-aware, which is always nice to see. That's funny. And JD says, I hope you recognize that the description came from a place of ignorance when I first started writing years ago. That's pretty funny. Again, this guy just seems like a total normie, just like a NPR listener or something from back in the day, before he decided that this was the easiest way to get power. It's kind of like being a YouTuber. What's the easiest way to get a lot of views? We were just talking about it. Just become an unhinged, rabid right-winger spreading MAGA propaganda. It's kind of the same thing in the political realm. It's not that hard. All you have to do is brown nose Trump the hardest, tell him whatever he wants to hear, and you can find yourself in the vice presidency.
Yeah, absolutely. The more white people feel like voting for Trump, the more black people will suffer. Yeah, it's crazy. This is an insane amount of self-confession right here.
Yep.
Before he fucked couches, who was he?
Yep. So again, a lot of comments just kind of proving that he was a bit of a normie liberal, maybe at most like a enlightened centrist or something. In October of 2016, he said, who was he calling a morally reprehensible human? Maybe
Trump. He says, Mr. Vance, living in California at the time, wrote, I'm counting my lucky stars that I live in a place where I don't have to vote for her because the margin will be so huge, because I know I could never support Trump if it really mattered. Dude,
sounds like us.
Hilarious. I think if anything matters anymore, this is going to be absolutely devastating to the Donald Trump campaign. It's going to be humiliating because his base is going to feel like he chose somebody who didn't even really believe in the mission. That's not even a real Republican, and that the people he needs to support him already don't like. So not only does he need swing voters, right? People who were wanting security, economic policy, all that stuff. No, this guy doesn't even really believe in any of that. He's just decided to spout culture war nonsense, the shit you don't like and don't care about, redefining political liability. I think that Donald Trump is a hair away from going full Tom Eagleton with this shit, as we've been saying. I just think the only problem is he knows that JD Vance will still be the name on the ballot because they already certified him at the Republican National Convention. It's hilarious. It's hilarious how dumb, fucking incompetent Donald Trump and the Republican Party is. I mean, it's glorious. I just want to drink their tears all damn day.
Oh, it's so glorious that Trump picked this loser. It's going to become such an albatross around his neck throughout this campaign season. I bet he's just, wishing so much that he had picked like Doug Burgum or some just more basic.
Could have taught us how to Dougie.
Republican. Yeah. Let's take a look also at this article. I found this one to be pretty juicy as well from Raw Story. Deeply disturbing. JD Vance's wife expressed revulsion with Trump over the January 6th riot. So that wasn't that long ago, guys. This was not, back in the Yale days or whatever. This was actually, pretty recently, January 6th of 2021, right? So in interviews with friends and colleagues of Usha Vance, wife of Senator J.D. Vance, who has assumed the role as Donald Trump's running mate in the 2024 presidential election, many expressed surprise that she is going along with the campaign, considering her past comments about the former president. So she was seemingly on the same page as JD. According to a report from the Washington Post, attorney Usha Vance has a reputation for being closed-mouthed about her political leanings, but did express revulsions and misgivings about Trump during the coup attempt by his followers, which he encouraged after he lost to Joe Biden. As the Post's Peter Jameson, Beth Reinard, Hannah Nathanson, and Nicole Marcus are reporting, Usha Vance rarely, if ever, volunteered her opinions on the nation's bitterly partisan politics to friends and colleagues. But she did make an exception when supporters of the former president stormed the Capitol. According to one friend, Usha found the incursion on the Capitol and Trump's role in it to be deeply disturbing. Before adding, she was generally appalled by Trump from the moment of his first election. Referring to Usha Vance sitting in the presidential box at the recently concluded RNC, that same friend pointed out it was surreal to see her sitting next to him last night.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what has to be going through your head. Obviously, a rational, insane person would get up and leave. They would just leave their spouse. They would take the kids and they would run far away, go back to their parents' house, go to a close friend, keep them far away from Donald Trump, the presidency, the Republican Party. But at the end of the day, we can't take away this woman's agency. She also is, on the up and up. She's probably getting a bunch of cool perks from having this. Her kids are probably having doors open for them. I mean, at the end of the day, she's not a good person. She's decided that her clout, her position in American politics as the wife of the, guy running for vice president is worth selling out every last one of her professed political convictions. And we're not talking about somebody who was 23 years old when they said this shit, by the way. We're talking about people who were in their mid-30s, deeply established, people who had led full lives, believing a very different message.
Yeah. I don't know, man. If I feel like you kind of have to be a pretty terrible wife to let your husband become Trump's running mate, given how toxic and abusive we all know that Donald Trump is. I mean, look how Mike Pence was treated. He was literally cool with that guy getting thrown to the wolves of his own supporters. He said he was perfectly fine if he got hung. I mean, that's what JD Vance has signed up for. You don't think he's going to be on the receiving end of some serious, genuine, straight up narcissistic abuse from Donald Trump, getting thrown under the bus every time it's convenient? Trump's going to blame this guy if he loses. His career is going to go down in smoke if Trump doesn't win the White House. I mean, it's definitely a risk on
reaping what you sow, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just mean, like, that's if one of my loved ones was in this position, I would be like, don't do this. It's not going to end well for you. You're not going to be the future of the Republican Party just because Donald Trump picked you as VP. If anything, you're going to be a scapegoat when he loses because of how much you suck. Anyway, according to Chad Callahan, an LA-based writer who was friends with her in college, she said, "Am I surprised to see Usha speaking on stage at a major political convention? No, she's brilliant. Am I surprised to see her there to support a man who seems to think building political power by punching down at trans folks and immigrants? Yeah, that part caught me off guard."
Oof. So powerful too. And if you like, they have smart friends, right? These people could savage you in the fucking media, right? You're not hanging out with a bunch of dummies. I'm not really sure what's going on. They're like, bro, I went to law school with that guy. I've seen that guy make arguments. I know his brain works. He's just decided to be a selfish oaf. He's decided to be a hateful bigot because he knows he can garner clout for himself that way. It's humiliating. It's humiliating for his wife. And I hope that she comes to her senses and leaves his stupid ass.
Yeah, it's genuinely crazy. And again, here we see, it's almost like an Aesop fable, right? They sacrificed all of their credibility, their reputation, among serious people, right? They sacrificed that all. And for what? Like I said, to be thrown under the bus. You don't think that Donald Trump is going to throw JD Vance right under the goddamn bus as soon as it's convenient for him? Of course he is. It might happen before the freaking election. He's already probably thinking about it. 100% if Donald Trump loses, JD Vance will be blamed, not just by Trump, but by the, sycophantic right-wing media that, of course, they're not going to blame Trump. They're not going to actually take any accountability or, a moment for self-reflection. Maybe the MAGA movement isn't the right direction for the Republican Party. No, of course not. They're going to say he picked Donald Trump. Trump's going to blame his sons who apparently convinced him to do this. And JD Vance will forever go down in history as one of the worst vice presidential picks, up there with Sarah Palin, Dan Quayle, etc. This is not in any way a good thing for his career. for his future. It's just crazy that they've sacrificed all their credibility and high society or whatever for this pathetic result.
Yep, he went from being the hillbilly elegy guy to the Ku Klux Care Bear, and that's about all you can say about that.
Yep, 100%. Cut the segment there.
Nah. Forget
Anyway, shout out to you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Kyle Kalinski's doughy weasel boy pejorative for Vance feels more on point every day. Yeah, that's a very, very accurate description of JD Vance. And that's the problem with these like super authoritarian, fascist coded Republicans like JD Vance. Like, it's one thing if you actually can pull off that like charismatic strong man thing that Donald Trump is able to, clearly. JD Vance, he's no strong man. He has no charisma. No one can envision him in the role of a dictator with an iron fist. You know what I'm saying? He's a freaking joke. He looks like he, needs to go to the gym and work out because he drinks too much beer or something. Like, it's just a joke. And
that would at least be relatable.
Yeah, at least trying to be relatable. He's trying so hard to be relatable, but that just makes it worse because it's so phony and he's a terrible actor and people know that's not who he really is.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Jonathan Boyle. Always great to see you in the chat. Really appreciate that generous super chat. Love to dunk on a doughy weasel boy like JD Vance. But I think that just about wraps up our show for the day. Gavin, was there anything else that you wanted to get to?
Not really. I think that basically wraps up the live stream. Really fun show today. Thank you guys all so much for sending in good questions. Had a lot of fun hanging out with you all. It's been a pretty wild month. July, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've got more. We're hitting the ground running tomorrow. We've got a Circle Jerk America coming at you guys live tomorrow night. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That's going to be available to everyone. So super excited about that. Normally what we do with the CJA is we'll make it live for everybody. Then we'll take the live stream down, cut it, put it back up for the people. So it's a nice polished piece of content for you all to enjoy. Go ahead and watch it. It's a little different. It's a little more fun. Our buddy Griffin, he gets all wound up during the week. He doesn't do a daily show, so he's got a lot of funny shit to say every week. We love hanging out with him, and it's a fun time to just kick back, get a little bit into parody of the news. And then on Monday, we plow right back into it. Got good friend of the show, Ben Burgess, coming on to talk about the news, talk about the Veep stakes, talk about some movies, talk about whatever the hell blows our way. And then Wednesday, it's finally happening, folks. Longtime viewers will be astonished, but Emma Vigeland will be joining the Vanguard pod live Wednesday afternoon. So we're keeping it coming. We're chugging along. We're going to talk sports. We're going to talk Kamala, coconut pilling. We're talking about shit liberty. It's going to be great.
Yeah, super excited. First time chat with Emma Vigeland of The Majority Report. Can't wait for that conversation. It's been a long time coming, so hope you guys are just as excited for that discussion as we are. And it does look like we got one final super chat to round out the show today. Thank you so much, Vicky, for the generous £10 super chat. It looks like I only pick the best people. Donald J. Trump strikes once again. Yeah, exactly. He only picks the best people. And then after he fails to do everything that he said he was going to do, then all of his supporters blame said best people for his failures. Oh, it was all the people around him. It was all the deep state people. Oh, you mean the people he freaking hired? You mean like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and JD Vance and everyone else that he hired? Yeah, all those people. Doesn't sound like a very strong leader.
Oh, he's supposed to know everything. He's supposed to know everything. He's doing this for America, man. He didn't need this. He was a billionaire. He could have been taking shits on a gold throne, eating McDonald's 3 meals a day, bro.
Yup.
Donnie did it for us. He's fought for me. Guy. No, shout out to you, Vicky Klee. In spite of your nationality, we do enjoy having you as a listener of the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if you're British or not. Shout out to you, Kevin. No, I'll be the last super chat. Well, hey, on that note, really appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you so much for the
You're going to let that stand, guys? You're going to let Kevin be the last super chat? Someone has the opportunity.
Gavin's going full JD Vance. He's trying to get in your pockets right now. He's Scrooge McDuck over here.
Wouldn't it be satisfying to not let Kevin have the last super chat?
Wow. This guy's, you guys want to do whitewashing for me? It's really fun.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thank you so much, Kevin. Really do appreciate that. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in to today's show. It was awesome as usual. A lot of good questions. And I guess we can shout out the Patreon community one more time.
Vanguardians, Super Vanguardians, comrades. Of course, you're all comrades to us. But if you want to see your name up there on the shout out screen, I don't know what it's going to take for me to get it to automatically go to the one that I wanted to. We're still learning here at the Vanguard. It keeps framing it improperly whenever Gavin shares a thing. We're working on that. But We're getting one step closer each and every day, thanks to the very generous support of the comrades, Vanguardians, and Super Vanguardians on Patreon, who support us just to let us know they care.
Yeah, huge shout out to the Patreon community. Really appreciate the support, you guys. It makes the show possible. It allows us to do this professionally instead of just for fun. So we really do appreciate it. It truly makes the show possible. It keeps us sustainable and able to come at you guys pretty much every single day, which is really, really lit, specifically now that the general election is in full swing. We got the DNC coming up. Kamala Harris will probably be unveiling her vice presidential pick pretty much any day now. So things are about to get even more exciting. We have debates coming up. We have interviews coming up. We have all sorts of crazy stuff. With who? Oh, at the debate. Yeah, exactly. Who knows what's going to happen, but we're going to be here to report on it. So subscribe to the channel, guys. And yeah, if you want to support our work, then hit up that link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. We really appreciate it.
Yep. Peace out, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Yep. Peace, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And it looks like Pedro the Lion did come in there and steal the spotlight from you, Kevin. Hi, what's up? Hi, Pedro. We're about to leave. So actually, goodbye. What's up?
Peace out. What's up?
Yeah. Peace, guys.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. Be there.